What's up, Gator Nation? Welcome into the latest Gators Online Show. Abolverdi and Nick Torre here. It is NFL Draft Week. Always an exciting time for us football fans, especially if you've got a team selecting high, as my Bears are selecting several first-round picks. So looking forward to that. Seeing where Ricky Pearsall lands. We'll talk about that on this week's episode. And, of course, get into the latest transfer portal news, guys going out, guys coming in, Florida trying to get guys to come in, and but there's not a lot of spots to work with, but there are some targets to talk about. So we'll get into all of that on this episode of the Gators Online Show. Nick, how are you, my friend?
Doing well. It's an exciting day in the NFL draft. We got to wait till 21 for the Dolphins, though, Zach.
Ooh.
Bit of purgatory here where you're not that good, but you're also not bad enough to get a bad pick.
Oh, it's better than being a Bears fan. Although I will say that I am of the crowd that did not want them to get rid of Justin Fields. Am I biased because I covered him as a recruit and wanted him to come to Florida and see him in Dan Mullen's offense? Yes. But I'm also, we'll see with Caleb Williams. I mean, he's very talented, but I've been happy to see them stick with Justin. But we're moving on to new QB.
That's exciting.
Yeah, I mean, been none like Sexy Rexy since him. There's just been a roller coaster. So we'll see how the Caleb Williams era goes in Chicago. But we're gonna start this show talking about some transfer portal news before we get into the draft. Before we do that, though, I want to encourage all of you listeners out there to take advantage of a special promo code that we have just for you podcast listeners and viewers. Other folks don't know about this. Only you guys that are listening to the show and watching live. So if you're not subscribed to Gators Online, you can use the code UF1 when you go to sign up and get 2 months for just $1. So take advantage of that. A lot of portal action going down, a lot of recruiting happening, and we're covering it all at Gators Online, along with baseball getting ready to heat up too. So we'll actually be hearing from Todd Golden as well on Friday. So we keep you guys busy over at Geo, so make sure you take advantage of that code UF1 when you go to sign up and keep up with all of our coverage. And there was a lot here on this Thursday as the Gators lost 2 more players from their 2023 roster, although not in the same way. Kind of a unique story with one of these players, and we can start with him. And, you know, the 2 guys that are moving on, should we say, at least from their playing days at Florida, is Ethan Pouncey and Riley Simmons. I think, Nick, going into this portal cycle, as you know, you see Florida scholarship numbers, you know that they're right at 85, you know they're going to have some attrition to maybe even, you know, get in the mix for some of these portal players out there. There had to be a few guys that decided to move on, and these were 2 guys that made some sense just based on how they're playing. Opportunities have played out the last couple of years, and now those guys are deciding to move on. Ethan Pouncey, he's graduated and is going to try and find a new home to play his last 2 years of eligibility, whereas Riley Simmons is kind of switching it up and doing something different, Nick. And I think it's important to start with him because he's going to forego his final year of eligibility and become a student assistant coach and kind of embark on a new chapter in his career and, you know, try to become a coach and work with that. And Nick, I think you and I both know that he is a guy that the staff has really liked since they got here and has been one of the ones that they've kind of held in really high esteem. They brought him on Gatorade trips. I know he got to do that really cool thing with Derek Wingo when they went to NASA. And now you see him getting this opportunity. And, you know, Nick, we hear a lot of times from fans that they're like, well, why won't they just kick these guys off the team? Why won't they just tell them to like kick rocks? And some guys get told that, you know, if you're not doing the right things, if you're not living the right way, you know, being a good guy in the program, a good guy in the locker room, they will tell you they will give you your walking papers. But clearly, Riley Simmons was a guy that they liked having in the locker room, liked having along the offensive line, even if he wasn't a starter. He was still clearly liked being part of the program. And now moving forward, I think them giving him this opportunity kind of speaks to that and why he's someone that has stayed, even though the past couple of years he has not played.
Yeah, I mean, he barely played for Dan Mullen and then
Yeah.
hadn't played for this coaching staff. But I think he's a kid who really liked the University of Florida, one who is going to get his degree. And this is a way to
Well, now he's getting his master's.
Yeah. Stay around the program while just in a different way. Like when I wanted to get into journalism, it was like, how can I stay around sports if sports no longer want me to play them? And I think that's the case here. So it's good for Riley. It frees up a scholarship for Florida, which is something they need as they continue like that. There hasn't been a ton of transfer portal news in terms of bringing guys in, just Caleb Rios, but still looking to fill an offensive lineman and a receiver, and you didn't have the scholarship numbers. You were over the scholarship limit until today. So I think it's a great opportunity for Riley. And while you get your master's, you'll find out like, hey, do I want to coach? Because it might be glamorous when you're making $7 million like Billy Napier or some of the top tier coaches, but the grind to get to that job isn't necessarily the most glamorous.
Yeah, and it's we've seen here recently a lot of former Gators that have been able to come back to UF and kind of get their start in coaching with this staff. Obviously, Brandon Spikes is a guy that jumps out, and he's kind of now working more in kind of the student development phase and working with GatorMade. But it's just, that is part of what this is about, is being part of that Florida football family, using those connections and being able to, figure out where your life and career is going to go after you're done playing here. And not everybody is going to be a starter. Not everybody's going to be an NFL draft prospect. And kudos to Riley for kind of being able to take advantage and make good connections with the staff to where he impressed them enough to get this opportunity, because they're not just letting anybody stick around and be a student assistant coach. So he will still be part of this program moving forward. But as Nick said, with his decision and then the decision from Ethan Pouncey, the Gators are now under the 85-man scholarship limit. So they have at least one spot to work with to try and go get somebody from the portal if they so choose. Now, Ethan Pouncey is the other guy that has decided to move on. And, really unfortunate how his career played out, Nick, because he was a guy that was highly recruited in the 2020 class, consensus 4-star. 24/7 Sports and ESPN had him as a top 200 overall prospect. He was committed to Texas at one point, comes to Florida, and then has a season-ending hip injury and then surgery, and really was never the same after that. Didn't have any action this past year. He played in 11 games in 2021, which is the most that he saw time at Florida, but really just was never able to kind of crack the rotation coming off that injury. Obviously, the Gators are really deep at cornerback, so I think it made sense, obviously, for him and for Florida for him to move on. So wish him the best of luck, but, I think it doesn't hurt the Gators' cornerback room, and it also doesn't really force them, I think, to also even need to go get another corner. I think that they're fine there depth-wise. I think we'll get into some of the targets and the positions that they've been focusing on in the portal, but I don't really anticipate that the news that we saw here Thursday, Nick, there's not going to be any reactionary moves with that. I think they're probably good, especially in the secondary.
Yeah, no, secondary's fine. And Pouncey might have been somebody who the coaching staff had a conversation with, but also I think his 5th year in college, he will graduate, get a degree from the #1 public university. But no, even if he would have stayed, I don't know that it changes the secondary room much. So this, at least in my mind, is one, it's great for Ethan to get a degree. and then maybe go find somewhere else. I think he might need to transfer down, but get a chance to play, get some tape, and it gives Florida, frees up a scholarship that they need.
No doubt. And with those guys, you've now had in this spring portal period a total of 3 departures for the Gators, along with Manny Nunnery. So, Nick, going into it, people asked me, hey, how much movement do you expect to see on Florida's roster? And I said 2 to 3, maybe 4. And that's kind of where we're at. We got a bunch of drafts in our WordPress for a few more guys in case there are some more transfers. But, there was the conversation about, there being a lot of movement in the spring portal period, not specifically for Florida, but just nationwide in college football. And I don't think that we've seen that nationwide, and we definitely have not seen that with Florida. But I wasn't surprised by that because I felt like most of the guys that wanted to leave did so after the 2023 season. And these ones that have moved on, maybe except I won't even want to say Nunnery. You can't even call Nunnery a surprise because he had entered the portal once before. Looked like he was beat out by Pup Howard. So all these moves made sense. I don't think anything has surprised me so far.
No, I think there's not many there's more people that would surprise me if they enter now than if they wouldn't enter. And I think you're right. You kind of had that initial purge, whether it was players being told to leave or players getting to see this new coaching staff and be like, this isn't what I signed up for, which, happens everywhere. But it's interesting. I would not like to be covering Colorado. I mean, it seems like every time the portal's open, you're getting 15, 20 guys to hop into the portal from your team, and then you add 25 and you figure out the numbers. But yeah, it's I think for the most part, like Florida's roster is what it is. Like you're not going to get 7 guys, 6, 5 guys. I think maybe 3 or 4 from this portal period. And
right now you're only going to be able to get 1.
Well, yeah. Like I said before, I think you told me not to say it, but like the 85 number is fake. It doesn't have to be real until the summer.
Yeah.
And Florida played all spring with 86.
No, they were under this spring. They've been over before, though. Yes. I mean, you can, like you say, it's not till that fall semester, first week, baby, that you got to really.
85.
So we'll see where the Gators go from here. There's already been some movement in the portal, so to speak, and some guys that they've targeted, some guys that they've missed out on. We'll get into some of those right here in the next segment. Before we do that, I want to give a shout out to myperfectfranchise.net, as we do each and every week. If you're ready to leave the corporate rat race for the American dream, looking for a side hustle while working your current job, wanting to diversify, build wealth, and or leave a legacy, Andy can help. He is a franchise consultant as well as a franchise owner and helps people find franchises that fit their skill sets, financial requirements, time to commit, and more. His services are 100% free, and he's here to help if you have any questions about business ownership with franchises. You can learn more and contact Andy anytime at myperfectfranchise.net or calling or texting him at 404-973-9901. And as the Gators have some players outgoing, they're trying to get some transfers incoming. And one of those guys that was on their radar was a wide receiver from Colorado State, Justice Ross Simmons, who on this Thursday, or I guess no, that was Wednesday night, committed to Syracuse ahead of his scheduled official visit to Florida. He was planning to be in Gainesville on Saturday to check out the Gators. Now, we have learned since this decision came out that there may have been, some transcript academic things that would have prevented him from being able to come to UF, which is, I think, why we now see this decision before he decides to come and check out Florida. but nonetheless, Nick, it takes away what was only one of seemingly a few options at receiver, which has been probably their biggest priority this portal cycle. And they've talked to some other guys, but this was one that they had scheduled for a visit, and it seemingly is a blow, especially for fans. Especially they would like to see Florida get these guys on campus first, and it seems like Syracuse was able to take advantage and beat Florida to the punch. But again, it's worth noting, if he couldn't have gotten the UF, then I mean, how upset can you get? But kind of what was your reaction to how all this played out, Nick?
I think we're going to see. Well, one, if you take the grades out of it, I think we're going to see with Fran Brown there. I think we're going to see Syracuse stealing commitments from schools, especially in the transfer portal. Kind of a player's coach. I think they're going to do a good job of getting guys specifically out of the portal. I think you'll even see them start to get some younger guys. It's very far up there. Good luck. I couldn't imagine being a kid from Hialeah and going on a visit to Syracuse, New York, and thinking, you know what, I can do this for a couple of years. But out of the portal, it's like, hey man, we got one more year to do this. We can brave out this cold. It is what it is. You want to brag about being the number one public university in the country. It is interesting because it's easier and harder to get in as a transfer. It's also easier. Was talking to Dan Thompson about this, and he worked in the recruiting and admissions for the 4 years he was at Florida. It's not that much harder for students. Like, it's certainly easier for student athletes to get into Florida than it is for me or Zach to get into Florida. But it's not Marshall or West Virginia either. So
yeah, sorry
if you went to those two schools. So it's interesting. I think I'd give it more of a credit to Fran Brown and his new staff there than I would, shift blame on the academics. And I don't know if I don't know if you even get to that point yet. Maybe they just look at it, but like he hadn't been denied from Florida, like he hadn't gone through a transfer process yet.
Well, I don't know how far along he was in his academics being looked at. We just know that had become a hurdle from the Florida side of things. So when at what point would have been discovered? Like if they would have beat Syracuse to the punch to get him on campus first, then do they realize before that trip that he doesn't have the grades, and then he never gets hosted, and then he goes to Syracuse and commits, and then people don't feel as bad? Right? Like, so if you just straight up missed on him and grades are not an issue, then that is what it is. Like you say, it's a credit to the Qs at that point. But I think it also is frustrating for Florida fans, and I'm sure for the staff too, just because they don't really have a lot of receiver options out there. And they have a really unique role that they're offering. It's, again, and we've discussed it, but it's not like you are offering wide receiver one to somebody to come to Florida and get. Like, that's already established with Eugene Wilson. The starter in the slot is already established in Shamir DK. You are basically, again, a guy that can come in and still be wide receiver two if he's more dynamic or more of a playmaker, but it's just not, and there's not a lot of players out there, that fit that caliber that you're looking for. So, one of the receivers that they were in contact with from Penn State has since committed to Auburn. There's another one from Arizona State as well. We'll see if anything happens with that. But if they don't get a receiver, is it the end of the world? Maybe not if Marcus Burke actually does in the fall what everyone says he was doing in the spring, and if Andy Jean is healthy and productive, and if Aiden Mizell catches on. But those are a lot of ifs, and those are three big ifs. and that's why this position was important in this cycle. And we'll see where the Gators go from here with Ross Simmons off the board. And as Nick,
it's got to be an attractive spot though. Like there is opportunity.
I mean, you got Graham Mertz. It's like your quarterback's going to be.
Even if you only have 1 year of eligibility, you've got Graham Mertz, somebody who had a great year last year, is going to be in his second year in the system. And if you have more than 1 year of eligibility, you have DJ Lagway behind him. So
yeah, that's a good point.
So the position's great, and yeah, there's some young talent, but like they're looking for someone for a reason. They're looking for someone because they have trouble getting separation. They have 3 guys that they feel good about, but then just a bunch of young guys after them. So, like they're looking for a receiver for a situation. Florida's short-term and long-term quarterback situation is great.
Yeah, it is, and that is something that not only you can be able to sell right now to whatever portal receiver that you're trying to target, but certainly in the 2025 class, there is a lot of wide receiver targets that they're going after, and some really highly rated ones as well. And being able to sell DJ Lagway as their quarterback of the future is certainly a nice feather in the cap of the staff. So another position of need for the Gators that we have highlighted in this portal cycle for the spring, along with wide receiver and tight end, which has been filled, is offensive guard. And the Gators going out and trying to get an interior offensive lineman. And then we learned of a potential target this past week, Jason Xandela, a USC offensive lineman who is from Clearwater, or should I say, went to high school in Clearwater, originally from Africa, had never heard of football before coming to America in 2020. So relatively new to the sport, but huge upside, 6'3", 305 pounds, was just a early enrollee for the Trojans in the 2024 cycle. So he is now in the portal, has all of his years of eligibility remaining. He is in contact with Florida, and the Gators are working to get a visit from him either this weekend, early next week, unsure of the specific days, but they are trying to fend off what is now a visit that he just took to UCF, another in-state school, and maybe a little bit more of a need there potentially for him. That's something that he's probably considering, but we'll see where this plays out. And look, how do I say this, Nick? Like, because there's not a lot of portal players out there and a lot of portal targets, this guy is going to be up on a pedestal just like Justin Ross Simmons is on a pedestal right now in the eyes of Florida fans and people tracking this stuff. But I will say that if Florida doesn't get Jason Xandela, if they get him, it's great because he's basically another lineman that you've got for your 24 class, which, by the way, you just added your 25 commit to because he reclassified. So you bolster that group even more. Having said that, is Jason Xandela going to come in and start for Florida as a true freshman in 2024? Likely not. So while they need help at guard from an interior standpoint, I think Nick and I and most people were more speaking of a multi-year starter with years of experience that can come in and challenge or beat out Najee Harris or Damian George. I don't necessarily know that Xandela, although he's got high upside, he doesn't check that box. Now, he's probably going to be one of your backups, and that would be great. But again, if Florida can get him, that would be fantastic. But he also doesn't necessarily exactly check the box that they were needing there. And therefore, if they don't get him, it's not the end of the world, in my opinion.
No, like I said, you're looking for, we've said on the show many times, you're looking for a veteran right guard who can start August 31st, not somebody who is in their probably second and a half year of playing.
Yeah, I mean, he's planning prom right now too.
Yeah. Originally from Mozambique, Africa, like you mentioned. I think the thought was he wants to get back closer to his host family in Clearwater. And I mean, you look at Florida, UCF, Florida State, I think was in it late in his recruitment before coming to USC. But yeah, like you said, like this second portal, when we put out that they need a tight end, a receiver, and an offensive lineman, those were all players who can make an impact in August, not filling other spots. Now, listen, Jason could turn into a really good player.
Yeah, he could shut us all up and start as a freshman, and we can all look like idiots.
But initially the cover of the book doesn't look like it belongs in the section of the library that we thought Florida would be perusing.
God, what a great line from Nick just now. I mean, I just shout out to Torre for the analogy just there. So we'll see what happens with that. We will continue to track it at Gators Online and see where they go at wide receiver and if they can find a guard to add to their room. And again, Riley Simmons moving on. He was an interior offensive lineman too, so that would make sense just from a number standpoint. They got 15 scholarship linemen, but you get another guy in there as well. So before we put a bow on the transfer portal talk, I do want to give a shout out to Prairie Dental Center. The doctor is a UF grad who's practiced in Gainesville for 3 decades and developed a deep understanding of how to diagnose and treat various dental problems, along with advanced skills and knowledge to provide better care for his patients. If you're having dental concerns or just need a cleaning, Prairie Dental Center offers a wide range of options to meet your needs. Give their office a call at 352-373-3431. Tell them Gators Online sent you, and your new patient exam will be free. We got to talk about this news of the week. Doesn't really relate to Florida, but it kind of does. Jaden Rashada is in the news once again, former Gators signee, and of all the places that he could have transferred to after leaving Arizona State, he has decided to transfer to the UGA Bulldogs. DJ Lagway versus Jaden Rashada was going to be the battle that we saw potentially in practice for this coming season and in years to come, but instead we're going to see it potentially in the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, and I, for one, am here for it. Lagway versus Rashada, bring it on. Great Florida-Georgia storyline.
Yeah, that would be an interesting one in 2025. I think I said on our podcast that, I thought DJ Lagway would have made Jaden Rashada transfer away from Florida anyway. During the whole NIL saga with him, but it's just crazy. It's crazy. I can't get away from the Jaden Rashada story.
You can't.
I cannot get away from it. But good for him. I'm sure Georgia has a nice NIL package for him after there wasn't much of one at Arizona State.
He got a bicycle.
And that's tough. Everyone on the roster, everyone on the roster, that bike shop gives a bike to every ASU football player. But that's tough to go from headlines of 15 million to riding around Tempe in the summer on a bike. It's hot.
Yeah.
But good for him. They have Carson Beck, obviously. But
Gunnar Stockton too.
Yeah, the Rashadas will be in Athens for the foreseeable future. Again, you can transfer again if you want.
Yeah, and again, he's going to have competition at Georgia, just like he was going to have at Florida. So it's not a foregone conclusion that he will be the starter for the Gators. I think that he'll probably beat out the quarterback that they ended up having to sign in their 2024 class, the Ryan kid. But I look, man, it just creates more drama, more storylines around that. It has nothing to do with Lagway, obviously, but I think Florida fans will take some extra joy in getting a win over Georgia if it comes over Rashada. And I wonder too, like, in any way, Nick, was there, you think, consideration on his part that I'm going to Florida's rival?
I mean, you can't make your moves like that.
Of course.
I would hope not. I would hope not.
Did it cross his mind?
I mean, it maybe it's an ancillary factor. But if like that's factors 1 through 20, if it's in your top 20 reasons to go somewhere, I don't know that you're living your life the right way.
No.
Revenge can be a reason to do something, but it shouldn't be the reason to do something.
No doubt. So nonetheless, did want to mention that he's back in the news this week, and we'll cross paths with Florida at some point in the future if he remains at Georgia, which you never know nowadays with these quarterbacks. So now let's get into the news of the week, and that is the 2024 NFL Draft. Starts tonight, 8 p.m. from Detroit, and Ricky Pearsall will look to continue the streak that the Gators own, which is being the only SEC school to have a player selected in every NFL draft. And I tell you what, if it wasn't for Ricky Pearsall transferring in the spring-winter portal that we're in right now as a receiver that the Gators are looking for, that streak would be coming to an end potentially this year if Kingsley Eguakun does not get in. But Ricky Pearsall, I think, will definitely keep it going. Most have him projected as a second-round pick, could sneak into maybe the late first round. A couple draft analysts have him projected 32nd overall to the Kansas City Chiefs. Would make sense, him in their offense. But what do you think of Ricky's pro prospects, Nick, and just kind of what he's done for himself, especially by coming back for his senior year?
Yeah, I think I didn't know, I said it over and over and over again when Ricky was weighing his options this time last year. I didn't know what he could do to make himself more draftable. And I thought he was like a third, fourth round pick. So coming back has at least changed the conversation to fringe first rounder. I don't think he goes on Thursday night in the top 32 picks, but I have a source, know that Carolina loves him. They can get him at 33. They can get him again, I think, at 36. Is that high? Maybe, maybe not. High is relative based on what coach and what program you go to. So I think Ricky brings already a professional attitude to the way he goes about his business on and off the field. You're not going to get a guy who's a problem off the field. You're going to get a guy who's going to be wearing out the jugs machine in your facility, and a guy who's just ready to work and ready to prove himself. So I think he's a great slot receiver, and I think he's shown a little bit at Florida, certainly in the draft process, that he's more than just a slot receiver. He can play outside as well. A guy who gets separation, goes up and competes for the ball. An NFL team's going to be very happy when they pick Ricky Pearsall.
Where do you think he's going to go? Have you looked at it?
I'm going to say he goes in the top 50 picks. So first half of the second round is where I think he's going to go.
Okay. And that falls in line with where most draft analysts have him going.
Most people have him outside of the top 10 receivers, or right around the 10th receiver.
Yep, that's actually right where Mel Kiper has him ranked. He actually has Kingsley Eguakun ranked as a number 10 center as well. And Jordan Reed has Eguakun coming off the board in the early seventh round to the Washington Commanders, which would be a reunion with Darnell Stapleton. So maybe a pick to monitor there. But yeah, I mean, most are right around that range that you said, Nick. 45th to the Saints. Mel Kiper actually has them trading up to get Ricky Pearsall at 45. Matt Miller from ESPN has him going 49th to the Bengals. Pro Football Focus has him going 50th to the Eagles. And then Jordan Reed has him going 61st to Detroit. So kind of right there in that range. As Nick said, he definitely improved his draft stock this year, was more productive, did more as a receiver. And to be honest, Nick, like at least part of my thinking, and I'm sure I wasn't the only one, and I know you were, was like, who was going to throw the ball to this guy? Because he had a really good year in 2022 statistically with Anthony Richardson, and we did not know who the quarterback for Florida was going to be and if he was going to be able to deliver the ball. And it turned out that ended up being a lot more productive for Ricky in that sense. So, and certainly this helps Florida from a draft and recruiting standpoint. It's important to have guys going in the first round, in the second round, as day 2 picks to be able to sell on the recruiting trail, to be able to sell to receivers. Look, I mean, this is not a very sexy draft class for the Gators whatsoever, but it could be a lot worse if Ricky was not a part of it and he had not transferred to Florida and had the career that he did. So kudos to him. We'll see which team he lands on, and we'll continue to follow that this weekend and kind of what he has to say and some of the reaction to that. And as we wrap up this show, we will turn our attention, as we love to do for the last segment and last portion, to Florida baseball, as the Gators are back on the road in SEC play this weekend. A really, really difficult matchup as well. Although they're coming in hot after a nice win over Stetson, which I was in attendance for, by the way, my first game of the season at Condren Family Ballpark. And great night to be out there. And my record as a spectator, pretty strong, Nick. Pretty strong. Maybe I was. I've been what the guys have been missing. I don't know.
Well, blame Zach then. Blame Zach for this for the record. Then it's interesting. It's a really, really tough matchup. There's supposed to be some weather in Fayetteville as well, so we're going to be monitoring that. But Pierce Capalla will start on Friday night against another left-hander, Hagen Smith. Conservatively, I will set the over-under for strikeouts for Florida on Friday night at 15. Hagen Smith strikes out everybody he faces. Nasty pitcher, 8-0, 153 ERA on the year. I think he's got I had it looked up and then I misplaced it, but he's got more. He has double-digit strikeouts per 9. Tough matchup on Friday night. Florida has a TBD on Saturday for their starter. Arkansas will start Brady Tigert, who's 4-1 with a 2.64 ERA. And then game 3, Florida goes to Jack, and Arkansas has its own TBD. Interesting storyline that we're watching with Jack is he's 9 home runs away from tying Matt Laporta for the school record. Florida has about, I think, 3 SEC series. Florida has like 12 games left, 10 games, 10, 12 games, something like that. And then they're going to have to win some games in Hoover. So we're wrapping up the season. Florida's got some work to do, and, it doesn't get any easier. Arkansas, Tennessee, SEC East leading Kentucky, and then finishing it up with Georgia to end the year at Georgia. So you'd love to take 2. You just, at this point, Florida needs to win any game that it can, including, upcoming on Tuesday against FAU. You need to win every game you can. You would love to get 2 on the road at Arkansas. That's going to be really, really tough. I think you'd go into Fayetteville with the objective of getting 1 of 3 and then winning your next 2 home series. So huge weekend for Florida. If you are a college baseball fan, Friday night, check out Hagen Smith, one of the best pitchers in the country that Florida will get the opportunity to go up against. Someone I've been circled. I've had this Friday circled since the schedule came out to get the chance to see Hagen Smith, and 15, we'll set the line, 15 and a half strikeouts. There's 27 outs in the game.
We'll see how he does against Jack Caglione, who's been, I tell you what, I think for opposing fans, when they have Florida on the schedule, they got it scheduled for Jack. And it's cool because Kevin O'Sullivan said this after the game, Nick, but it was so true because I was there sitting with my son in the stands, and he's obviously a baseball fan, and Jack, like, he is one of those players, man, where like when he steps up to the plate, like he grabs the attention of the entire ballpark, and everybody is watching because they know that he might go yard, and he did it twice on Tuesday night, and this has not been obviously the season that Florida has wanted, but it's been an incredible year from him again.
Having been on the road too, it's even more pronounced on the road than it is at home. I think you kind of, get used to seeing, the Jack Caglione show when you're at home and you see it 40 times. But when I was down in Miami and when I was in Jacksonville, it gets extra quiet. They only get one opportunity or three opportunities to see this guy, and Jack's putting together one of the best years, one of the best 2-year runs. But certainly this year is special. I mean, he's hitting better against left-handed pitching than he is against right-handed pitching, which is the opposite of what you would think when you're thinking baseball. So Florida, Kevin O'Sullivan said it. He's like, we're kind of wasting, like the rest of the team, we are kind of wasting the year that Jack Caglione has put together. That sucks. That sucks to hear. Me, like, as a journalist, I don't look at it necessarily that way. It's been a ton of fun as a baseball guy too, to watch what Jack is doing at the plate and on the mound. I mean, at the plate, he has almost double the amount of home runs, 25, as he does strikeouts, 14.
Gosh.
And typically when you get a guy who has that much power, and you had some good seats, Zach, who swings as hard as Jack does, typically you get a lot of swing and miss with that, and he's not swinging and missing much. Only 14 strikeouts. Hope I didn't jinx him by bringing it up this weekend. But Friday night is a night where strikeouts could come.
Well, I'm looking forward to that matchup. A lot of really good series coming up for Florida here down the stretch. So if you are like me or were like me and have not made it out to a game at Conjuring Family Ballpark, make sure you do it. It's such a great atmosphere. I got incredible seats and only spent $12 for 2 tickets. Resale too, like on row 5, right behind the plate. So can't beat it, especially if you can get out for a Tuesday game. A lot of availability there, but it was a good crowd out against Stetson. So make sure you guys follow all of Nick's coverage at Gators Online. We'll see how that series plays out this weekend at Arkansas. We'll see where things go with the USC offensive lineman, who has now scheduled a visit with Florida, and that is going to be happening. So he is the latest portal target that we'll be tracking in the days to come. So make sure that you guys stay locked with Gators Online to see how that plays out. Again, if you are not a member, use the code UF1 when you go to sign up and get 2 months for just $1. Make sure you guys like and subscribe here as well. And Nick and I will be back next week with a new episode, and we'll see where Ricky Pearsall landed for his NFL future and some of the other free agent signings as well. So for Nick Del Torre, I'm Zach Abolverdi. We'll see you guys next week.